Welcome back, everybody, to The Deep Dive. Today we are tackling something a little different. Instead of a broad topic, we're going deep on just one person's experience.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah. The story of a baby rescued during a U.S. military operation in Afghanistan back in 2019.
Wow. Okay, so where do we even begin with a story like that?
Well, I think the best place to start is with the raid that brought this baby into the picture in the first place.
Okay.
So imagine, right, U.S. Army Rangers conducting a nighttime raid on an al-Qaeda compound.
Oh, wow.
And it's just chaos,
That is
intense firefights. They have to breach walls with a Carl Gustav.
a Carl Gustav.
Yeah, it's this really powerful recoilless rifle.
Okay.
And they were facing heavy resistance.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, and amidst all of this, they find this baby girl.
Oh, my gosh.
And the circumstances of her discovery are, well, they're really chilling. The Rangers reported that the baby's father was using her as a human shield while he was engaging them in a firefight, and her mother, they believe, was a suicide bomber.
That's horrific.
It is.
I can't imagine the impact that must have had on the Rangers who found her.
Yeah. It really affected them profoundly. They actually named her Starfish.
Starfish.
Yeah, after this poem about the impact of saving even just one life.
Wow. That really kind of highlights the moral dilemma that unfolded from there, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. So enter Joshua Mast. He's a Marine Judge Advocate General.
Okay.
So essentially legal counsel for military operations.
Okay.
He was deployed to Afghanistan, and he becomes very central to this story.
So how did he get involved with this baby starfish?
Well, I think it's important to remember the context here.
Mhm.
Joshua was witnessing the realities of war firsthand. He was seeing the dangers that children faced. He saw the often deplorable conditions in Afghan orphanages.
Right.
And, he had seen kids exploited, even used as suicide bombers. This wasn't just some, abstract concern for him. So he encounters this baby rescued from an al-Qaeda compound. And I imagine his lawyer brain was working overtime.
Yeah.
But so is his heart.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
He felt a moral obligation to protect her, to shield her from the danger she would face if she was, left in the Afghan system.
Yeah. So that's where the Judge Advocate General part comes in, right?
Yeah,
Trying to navigate the legal and bureaucratic hurdles to get her out of Afghanistan.
exactly. And it was, not easy at all. I mean,
Yeah.
just think about it. You're in a war zone. You're dealing with this complex military bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you're trying to care for an infant.
Right.
He encountered obstacle after obstacle.
I bet. Even something as basic as obtaining a birth certificate, was that hard?
That became a major hurdle.
Really?
Yeah.
A birth certificate? That seems like it should be pretty straightforward.
Well,
What was the holdup?
it's a prime example of how, even with the best intentions, bureaucracy can sometimes, create more problems than it solved.
Yeah.
There was red tape, there was missing documentation,
Right.
and there's just this general lack of clarity on how to proceed in, such an unusual situation.
Right.
And it's really a testament to Joshua's persistence that he didn't give up.
So eventually, the Marine Corps formally recognized the baby as his dependent.
They
Right?
did, yeah.
That seems like a pretty big turning point.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
I mean, it solidified his commitment to her well-being, and it really marked a shift in how the situation was perceived.
Okay.
But it also brought to light a really stark clash of worldviews.
Oh, okay.
So you had the military personnel who were deeply affected by this baby's story.
Right.
They were determined to protect her.
Yeah. And on the other side.
The U.S. Embassy,
Okay.
their perspective was, well, let's just say, less focused on the individual child.
Really?
Yeah.
Help me understand this. What was the embassy's take on the situation? Were they concerned about the baby's safety at all?
Well, it seemed like their primary focus was maintaining, positive diplomatic relations and facilitating the ongoing peace negotiations with the Taliban.
Okay.
So they really viewed the baby situation as an inconvenience, a distraction from these larger political objectives.
So they weren't exactly rallying around this little girl.
There's actually this really jarring anecdote where Joshua was accused of being ethnocentric,
Ethnocentric for
Yeah.
wanting to protect a baby from potential harm.
for advocating so passionately for the baby's welfare.
That seems like a wild accusation to make.
Well, it really underscores the clash between the perspectives of those on the ground,
Right.
witnessing the realities of war,
Yeah.
and those operating within, the diplomatic sphere, where individual cases can sometimes be overshadowed by larger geopolitical concerns.
Right, right. So it sounds as things were getting Pretty tense. Did anyone else share Joshua's concerns?
Yeah, there was actually testimony from a colonel
Yeah.
who witnessed a heated meeting where military personnel advocating for the baby were directly chastised and silenced.
Oh, wow.
So it's a stark example of how, differing viewpoints can lead to conflict,
Right.
even within institutions that ostensibly share the same overarching goals.
So what happened next? Was Joshua able to overcome these bureaucratic hurdles and bring the baby back to the U.S.?
Well, that's where the story takes a truly shocking turn. Despite mounting evidence suggesting that the baby was an orphan, the U.S. Embassy made a decision that left many people stunned and heartbroken.
Okay, I have to know. What did they do?
They decided to hand the baby over to individuals claiming to be relatives, and they did so without conducting a DNA test to verify the alleged familial connection.
No DNA test.
Nope.
Why on earth would they bypass such a crucial step?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It really is. It makes you question their decision-making process in this whole thing.
Yeah, especially with how sensitive this case was. I mean, think about it. You've got a baby found in an al-Qaeda compound in a war zone. The whole situation was just incredibly complex.
So what about the people who were actually caring for Starfish?
Yeah.
Like the medical staff, the rangers who rescued her.
Yeah.
How did they react to this whole handover?
Well, they were devastated. A lot of them felt like this deep sense of betrayal.
Yeah.
The medical personnel, they'd been nurturing her. They were tending to her needs. They felt like they were losing a part of their own family.
Wow.
And there were even reports of grief counseling being
Yeah.
offered to the staff who were really struggling to cope with the emotional fallout of this whole thing.
Man, that really says a lot about the bond that had formed between her and the people who were taking care of her.
Absolutely.
But what about Joshua and Stephanie? I mean, they had formally adopted Starfish, right? Did they just accept this decision?
Oh, absolutely not. They were furious. They knew in their hearts that this was wrong, that handing Starfish over to these, unverified people could be dangerous.
So what did they do?
They took matters into their own hands.
Oh, okay.
They sued the Secretary of Defense to try to prevent the handover. It was a really bold move,
Wow.
especially for an active duty Marine like Joshua.
Yeah.
Imagine the pressure he must have been under
Yeah.
to go up against the very institution he served.
It's incredible. It really shows how committed they were to her well-being. But what about the lawsuit, though? Did it actually succeed in stopping the handover?
Unfortunately not. The government used legal technicalities to dismiss their concerns.
It's heartbreaking. It's like this bureaucracy, even within a system that's designed to protect,
Yeah.
Can sometimes fail to actually prioritize the best interests of the people who are most vulnerable.
Yeah. It's a stark reminder that even when people have good intentions, the systems they operate within can hinder their efforts.
So what happened to Joshua and Stephanie after the lawsuit failed? Did they ever get answers about who these people were that Starfish was given to?
Well, this is where it takes an even darker turn, actually. Remember, all of this is happening during the backdrop of the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan
Right.
in 2021.
Right. A very chaotic and uncertain time.
It was, and the situation with Starfish was about to get really tangled up in those events.
Okay. I am on the edge of my seat. What happened during the withdrawal?
Well, as things in Afghanistan got worse and worse, Joshua and Stephanie, they got drawn into these, desperate efforts to evacuate Afghan allies
Yeah.
who had worked with the U.S. during the war.
Right.
They actually used their own experience and connections to try and get people to safety.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. They saw firsthand how quickly things could change over there
Exactly.
and how important it was to act decisively.
Absolutely.
But what does this have to do with Starfish?
Well, as fate would have it, their work with the Afghan evacuees actually led them to reconnect with Starfish, who is now named Sparrow.
Wait, they found her after all that time?
Yes, after 18 months of separation, they found her.
Wow.
But the reunion was very bittersweet.
I can only imagine.
While they were, overjoyed to have her back, they were heartbroken by the condition that she was in.
What do you mean? What happened to her?
Sparrow was malnourished, she was clearly traumatized, and she was showing signs of abuse.
Oh, wow.
It was a devastating realization. It was a real tangible consequence of the embassy's decision to hand her over without, any proper vetting or verification.
It's heartbreaking. It really underscores the human cost of, these bureaucratic decisions. The ripple effects that they can have that go way beyond just the initial situation.
Right.
So did Joshua and Stephanie ever find out more about the people she had been living with?
Well,
Was there any kind of follow-up from the U.S. government?
that's where things get really interesting and, frankly, a bit unsettling.
Yeah.
Remember, the withdrawal was just chaotic, right?
Right.
And there's a lot of information that's still classified or really hard to verify.
Okay, but what do we know? Did they find out anything about why those relatives were allowed to just take Sparrow in the first place?
Well, this is where we start to get into speculation and allegations, and it's important to be cautious about, jumping to conclusions without having concrete evidence.
All right.
However, there have been some claims, some from pretty credible sources, that suggest a much more complex and disturbing picture of what happened.
Okay, I'm all ears. What
All right.
kind of claims are we talking about?
Well, there's been speculation, fueled in part by leaked documents and testimonies from people who were involved in the evacuation process, that some of the people that Sparrow was handed over to may have had connections to the Taliban.
Hold on, are we saying that the U.S. government might have inadvertently handed a baby who was rescued from an al-Qaeda compound over to people who were linked to the Taliban?
It's a chilling thought, isn't it?
It really is.
And while it might sound far-fetched, there is some evidence that, warrants further investigation.
Okay, this is mind-blowing. What kind of evidence are we talking about here?
Well, there have been reports, some based on classified documents that have since been declassified, that suggest that there were, serious oversights and potential failures in the vetting process during the evacuation.
Oh, wow.
It's possible that in the rush to get people out of Afghanistan, certain red flags were missed.
Yeah.
Or worse, intentionally ignored.
Intentionally ignored. Why would anyone do that?
That's the question that investigators are still trying to answer. Some people speculate that there may have been, pressure to expedite the evacuation process, even if it meant cutting corners on, security protocols.
Yeah.
Other people suggest that there may have been individuals within the government who were actually trying to, downplay or cover up potential lapses in judgment.
So we're talking about potential negligence, incompetence, or even something more sinister. This is getting heavier by the minute.
It's complex, and it's important to, like I said, not jump to conclusions without a thorough investigation. But the evidence that has come out so far does raise some serious concerns about how those decisions were made, that led to Sparrow being handed over to those individuals.
Yeah.
And, the potential consequences of those actions.
That's a lot to process, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So what happened next? What about Joshua's investigation?
That's where we'll pick up in the final part of our deep dive. The story of Joshua Mast, Baby Sparrow, and the fall of Kabul, well, it's far from over.
And there are still so many unanswered questions.
Yeah, there really are.
Like, what happened with the investigation into Joshua? He was accused of mishandling classified information, right?
Right.
All because he was trying to, raise concerns about Sparrow's safety.
Yeah, it really highlights the challenges of whistleblowing.
Yeah.
Especially within, institutions like the military.
So did the Marine Corps end up finding him guilty?
Actually, no.
Okay.
He was cleared of any wrongdoing.
Ooh.
But, the details of that investigation are really revealing.
Okay, yeah, tell me more about that. What happened?
Well, remember how Joshua had referenced that publicly available document when he reported his concerns?
Yeah.
The one about terrorist screening processes?
Right, from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Yeah, I remember that. Seemed like pretty standard information.
Well, during the investigation, that same document was used as evidence against him. But this time it was stamped secret meth foreign.
Wait, so a document that was publicly available was suddenly classified as secret just to build a case against him?
It definitely raises some questions about their motivation. Was it a genuine attempt to uncover wrongdoing? Or was it an effort to just discredit and silence someone who was raising, uncomfortable questions?
That's a troubling thought.
Mm.
But at least the truth came out and he was cleared. It must have been such a relief for him and Stephanie.
Oh, it was. They had been through so much. The rescue, the custody battle, the separation, the reunion, and then the stress of this investigation. It's a lot for anyone to handle.
It's amazing they didn't give up. But, I guess their love for Sparrow, now officially their daughter, just kept them going.
Yeah, their commitment to her well-being never wavered.
So speaking of Sparrow, how is she doing now? It sounds like she went through a lot before she was reunited with them.
She did. When they first found her, she was malnourished, showing signs of trauma and potential abuse. It was a difficult thing to see, a reminder of everything she had been through during that 18 months.
Yeah, so how is she coping now?
Well, the good news is she is thriving.
That's great.
It's a real testament to the love and support she's getting from Joshua, Stephanie, and their extended family. She's in a safe and loving environment. Her needs are being met. and she's able to, heal and grow.
That's really wonderful to hear. It sounds like she's finally getting the happy ending she deserves. But this whole story, it just leaves me with so many questions, like, what happened to those people who were supposed to be Sparrow's relatives? Did anyone ever actually investigate their potential ties to the Taliban?
Those are questions that, unfortunately, we don't have clear answers to, at least not publicly.
Oh, okay.
There's been speculation, there have been whispers, but no concrete evidence has come out to definitively link them to the Taliban.
So it's still a mystery.
Yeah, pretty much. And it just highlights the limitations we sometimes face when dealing with sensitive information.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to national security and international relations.
I guess some things will always just be, shrouded in secrecy.
Unfortunately, yeah.
But even without all the answers, this deep dive has been so eye-opening. We've seen how powerful individual action can be, and the complexities of bureaucracy, and just the challenges of navigating these moral dilemmas in high-stakes situations.
It's one of those stories that stays with you. Makes you really think about the world in a different way.
Yeah. And it's a good reminder that even in these systems that seem impenetrable, individuals can make a difference. I mean, Joshua Mast, he risked his career, he faced down powerful institutions, he never gave up on his fight to protect Sparrow.
And in the end, he was not only able to reunite with his daughter, but he brought to light some very important issues that deserve, a lot more scrutiny.
His story is both inspiring and unsettling.
It really is.
It's like a call to action for all of us, to question those in power, to never stop fighting for what we believe in no matter what. So what does all this mean for you, the listener? What will you take away from this deep dive?
Oscar.